Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Adam Balderstone, and we're going to be talking about Return of Condor Heroes, episodes 40 through 41. These are the last two episodes of Return of Condor Heroes 2006. This might be a short episode because I don't know. We only had two episodes to review, so I don't know how long we're going to be going unless we get into a meandering discussion. But Adam, what did you think of the conclusion? This was what everything was building up to. What were your feelings these last two episodes?
I liked it on the whole. It was a little abrupt, I think. It kind of ends with the conclusion of the battle, pretty much. There's very little beyond that. It's the kind of ending that if this were a 2-hour movie, that would be fine. But it being us having spent 41 episodes with these characters, you kind of want a little more character closure. I mean, you mentioned the book has more of an epilogue to it, and I feel like it would have been wise to at least tap into a little bit of that. I mean, the last show we watched, Babylon 5, the last episode is just 20 years later, the characters get together, and it's mainly them just having a reunion and talking to each other, and it just gives you a little bit beyond where the series is, and I feel like something like that would have made this more satisfying. But it was a great series. That's kind of a nitpick more than anything else.
Well, I do think the weakness of this version is the beginning and ending for sure. I feel like they do they gloss over a lot of really important stuff early in the story, and they end it well. But if you know what happens, it's like there's more. There's more that needs to be resolved at the end of this.
Yeah, it's by no means a bad ending. It just I went and immediately started reading the final chapter of the book, which is beyond the, because this basically ends at the end of the second to last chapter of the book, and I haven't finished the last chapter of the book, but I immediately did have to start reading it because I'm like, well, I want a little more, and I mean, and it does exist because the book is out there, so it's not. And I guess if you read the book, that is in your head anyway. And a lot of people watching this series are familiar with the story already. So,
well, and I think the one of the things that I think they really kind of didn't do well here, that they did do well in the books, is in the final battle, Huang Yaoshi was actually like the tactician for the big defense, and you see almost none of that. Like, you kind of see it in the background, but it's not totally clear. And he has this epic formation. He's all about formations. So his big thing that he does is he does like a bagua like formation based on like the elements and the hexagrams and all that stuff, and it's amazing. It's a really, the way it's described in the book is it's you can sort of picture it like a movie in your head, and it's almost like the opportunity is missed. But I can sort of see how they might not have wanted to go on that. Like that would have been really hard to replicate visually.
Sure.
With they might have been out of CG money, or who knows, But
they didn't do the epilogue. They just blew their budget. They ran out of money, and they're like, okay, we're just going to stop a chapter short.
But one of the things that's a little bit unclear in the show, I mean, not totally. You do get a sense of it, especially that final standoff on Heartbreak Cliff with Jin Loon and the Greats and all that. But the ending is kind of where all of the characters get a chance to be a hero. Do you know what I mean? Even the guys who you might have been on the fence about, like Huang Yaoshi, he really rises to the occasion. Like, everybody kind of rises to this heroic moment. You see it, but it's just not as clear. But I don't know. I still think it was a good ending. I just sort of if you're familiar with the story, it is kind of missing something, I think. And this is sort of I think where they do well in this series is the relationship between Guo Zhang and Jin Loon, which you get to see. So, but to go over the plot, because I do want to address all the stuff that happens. Very broad strokes here. Number one, we get the end of that cliffhanger where Yang Guo and Guo Zhang leap down to the bottom of Heartbreak Cliff. And when they're down there, they both survive, and Guo Zhang convinces Yang Guo to promise her not to kill himself. She uses her last golden needle as a request. And so even if he doesn't find Zhao Long Nu, he's now vowed not to kill himself. So no matter what happens at this point, we at least know Yango is probably gonna at least be okay.
Yeah, that was a nice scene. I liked that. That scene worked very well. And I mean, it came off well that Yango, he's really touched by that being the gesture. It's not like it's become this horrible obligation that he can't end his pain. It's like it almost feel like he kind of got a boost and a feeling of being okay with going on with his life just from the fact that it's like, yeah, other people in the world care about me. I matter, and this doesn't need to be the end of my life. So
well, I think that's been Yango's whole thing the whole way through. He's an orphan who doesn't feel wanted, and so he, throughout the novel and throughout the series, he kind of has this recurring "nobody loves me" thing going on.
Yeah.
So feeling wanted is an important that sort of crystallizes it, I think, for him. And also, there's a battle going up on the top of the cliff between Jinlun and Zhu Batong and Lu Ying and Reverend Yidang and Huang Yaoshi eventually comes and participates. And one of the two condors arrive, and one of them gets smashed and killed.
Yeah.
The other one goes down to the bottom of the cliff to retrieve it, and I think brings up Guo Zhang around at some point around this moment in the story. I might have my timeline confused, but one of the condor removes Guo Zhang soon after she makes Yango make that promise, and then after that he is reunited with Zhao Long Nu because he finds a sort of hidden lake cave under the lake. It's a very confusing thing, and it turns out she's been here all this time. She just couldn't get up because of slippery rocks, which we have to talk about. This is something that I think we need to really discuss. And so they're reunited and they have their moment, and then there's this extended battle up on the top of the cliff. One of the condors dies, the other one kills itself, which is a callback to something that happens in Legend of Condor Heroes. And also, this is Heartbreak Cliff, so it's very appropriate and also kind of ominous that the condors that represent Guo Jing and Huang Rong are killed. But ultimately what happens is because they defeat Jinlun, the adults try to crawl down into the bottom of Heartbreak Cliff, and they leave Guo Jing behind with a paralyzed Jinlun, thinking that it's perfectly safe. And Jinlun seizes the opportunity and convinces her that he's in a lot of pain because of the acupoints that they froze, and if she could just tap his center acupoint, that he'll be, it'll alleviate some of the suffering. And she does so, and he gets up and he abducts her again, and then but the important thing is Huang Rong and crew go to the bottom, and they basically figure out that Zhao Long Nu is probably alive. They return to the surface, and they have to go back to Zhangyang to deal with the Mongolians and also hopefully reclaim their daughter. There's an enormous battle, and in the battle, Guo Zhang is carted out on a tower. Were you with us for the painted skin resurrection discussion, or were you not present?
I was not,
because there's a scene in that reminds me of this scene. But
also Kenny during the which movie was it? Tai Chi Master, and there was the tower scene in that. Kenny made I didn't know what he was talking about, but he kind of said, "Oh, it's like in Return of Condor Heroes." And when I'd forgotten that comment. As soon as she showed up in the tower, I'm like, that came back to my mind. Like, oh yeah, that's what Kenny was talking about.
And so Jinlun has her on top of this tower. He's also there with Monkey Khan, the grand leader of the Mongolians at this point, and he's threatening to kill her unless Guo Jing comes out. And they're basically trying to get Guo Jing to surrender in exchange for his daughter. Guo Jing comes out, but he's already had this epiphany where he realizes defending the city is the most important thing. So even for his daughter, he isn't going to sacrifice himself, because he realizes that he's this vital piece in the chessboard, and that if they sacrifice him, that they can take the city. And so Huang Rong tries to run out and do something, and Guo Jing stops her, and then she kind of understands too. And part of the whole thing in this story is Guo Jing is sort of the one person who really has this this understanding of the importance of what's going on here, and all the other characters, are sort of moved by his understanding, but they don't fully internalize it the way that he has.
Yeah.
So they end up deciding to defend the city rather than save Guozhang, and Guozhang tells her father that she's not afraid to die. She basically, accepts what's going on, and Yanguo and Xiaolongnu return, and they're the ones that help lead the rescue of Guozhang. And then there's a great battle between Yanguo and Jinlun. Yanguo just narrowly defeats him, but one of his final moves, I think, is he deflects a bunch of cannonballs back at the tower, and this causes it to start collapsing. And while Guozhang is standing there basically thanking him for rescuing her, a bunch of cannons are about to fall on her. And Jinlun leaps forward and takes them on himself to save her. So he kind of does like a last minute self-sacrifice, and then she goes over to try to help him, and he's clearly dying, and he says, just call me Sifu, and she calls him Sifu, and it's like a very oh, go ahead.
I say, one interesting beat too that comes up is someone spills the thing that starts the fire around Guozhang at one point, and he's really pissed off at that guy that does it and knocks him off the tower. It's kind of gives you the impression he's using her as a hostage, but that he never had any intention of actually doing it.
Yeah.
It gives you the feeling it was an empty threat all along. He was hoping he could kind of use this threat, but he really didn't want her to die.
No, it's very interesting. She's the one character that kind of anchors his humanity. And it's a very rapid transition, but it works for his character because it's all rooted in his desire to extend his martial arts, because he has this fabulous technique, this elephant technique that he can't translate.
Baby elephant walk, I believe it was called.
And so he but then after he dies, there's a little bit of a scene where Yellow Qi is in peril, and Yanguo jokingly tells Guofu that he'll rescue Yellow Qi if she kowtows to him 3 times, and she does. She tries to kowtow, and he's like, "No, I'm just kidding. We're family. I will go rescue him." And then Yanguo chases after Monkey Khan as he's just trying to escape. And it's a pretty interestingly filmed scene where you have him sort of running along the side of the men, and Monkey Khan is running away. And he ends up killing him by throwing a stone at him and then impaling him with a spear. And just to be clear, Yanguo kills Monkey Khan, because I was unclear with my pronouns just now.
So and I will say one thing that wasn't entirely clear is, they refer when they're like, "Oh, he's dead," the Great Khan is dead, and it made me think, it's like, wait, was because we'd already. I wasn't clear on who that was exactly, because it made me think, wait, was Kublai Khan the Great Khan, or
no,
was that
Kublai
they
Khan?
changed?
Kublai Khan isn't the Great. Now he will become, and
he will. Okay, like I said, that confused me, because I was like, I don't think that's the same actor, and it's plus I know enough history to know that Kublai Khan does not die before taking Zhongyang. It's
well, and what's interesting here is that where this guy Monkey Khan, there's all kinds of different accounts of how he died. He might have died of dysentery. He might have died in battle. There are a bunch of different versions of his death, and so it's kind of cool that a character that has this ambiguity gets killed by Yanguo. And so, sort of the definitive account in this story is Yanguo killed him with a spear.
He found a hole in history and he filled it, which is always a good technique in fiction and role-playing games. But
so then Xiaolongnu and Yanguo, we sort of get the opening scene of this series in the opening credits is Yanguo and Xiaolongnu in front of a moon, and we sort of get that scene where they're flying in the sky.
So the first image we see in every episode is there on the credits roll.
and then Guozhang kind of sort of gives a parting words at the end of the series. Now obviously the epilogue is missing from this. In the book, they establish who the new five greats are, and there's an extended sequence that sort of leads into Heaven Sword Dragon Saber. But we'll get into that when we get into our Heaven Sword Dragon Saber discussion. I think
I'll finish the last chapter by the time we get to that, so
and
I'll be able to discuss that.
I think that'll be interesting. I think we're going to try. We'll see how it goes. We're going to try to do the Heaven Sword Dragon Saber book, read through that, talk about it, and see if we can. And then I don't know. Maybe if we have the stamina, we might watch a series. But we'll see. We'll see how.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's on the whole, I enjoyed it. It's I was wondering if I mean, I knew, talking about things you see in the credits, it's like I knew Zhao Nu had to appear at least once more in some form, because there's still images in the credits I haven't seen yet.
Well, there's always that problem. Also, I just want to say, she's flying. She's flying at the moon, right? And so
yes.
how come wet rocks are prohibiting her from climbing up the cliff face? In the book, I like when me and Kenny went through it this time, I made a point. I'm like, I'm going to pay closer attention this time and see if that's ever adequately explained. In the translation we read, I don't think me or Kenny really felt we got an adequate explanation. It's possible we missed some crucial point. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're reading these things and something's mentioned quickly, or you're just not on the ball. And so I don't want to say it's not fully addressed in the story. It probably is. But I still feel cloudy on this point of how she was unable to escape from the bottom of Heartbreak Cliff.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like an issue that comes up in a number of wuxia works, where it's like, characters can fly except when they can't.
Yeah, and it's not always pure flight. Sometimes it's kind of like it's a lightness of the body. But I feel like that should have been enough to get her to the top of the.
She the whole series, she's been very, very good at the whole floating around thing. That's just been more than most characters. She's done a lot of that.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. So it's always been a little bit perplexing to me. Now, something else that I thought was cool, I think it's Lua Shuang who says this. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember entirely, but when but she recites Li Mochu's
I picked
poem.
up on that being the song. Yeah,
and
even before she got to say it, but even before she said it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's that song.
And she says it when the condor kills itself, to sort of emphasize that the condor has sacrificed itself because it can't go on living or something. And I think that's when this happens. Maybe it was at a later point. But she says, "Oh mortals, what is love that binds beyond life on earth? To all corners in pairs we fly, braving summer and winter by and by." And it's just, you've heard this so much by this point in the story that it was kind of nice to get a callback to Li Mocho. And
Yeah, it is kind of interesting having her, as Li Mocho is frequently such a cold character in the story. It's like her being brought up as the person who's quoted for this kind of sentimental, sad scene is it just kind of shows the complexity of her a little bit. But yeah, I mean, she's an important enough character. It was nice to have a reference to her at the end of the story.
Also, I liked the scene where Yanguo is reunited with Zhao Nu, and they're just, he's like, hey, yeah, we'll just stay here forever now. But he gets this sense of foreboding, and he and then you don't see what happens, but they end up going to Zhangyang and rescuing Guo Zhang. So you think that he had some kind of sense that she was in peril.
Well, I like the way they shot it. They show Guo Zhang and she's crying and her tear starts to fall. Then it cuts to a drop falling from the ceiling of the cave and landing on Yanguo, and I was like, oh, that was just very well done.
And again, we've discussed Star Wars before, but it kind of reminded me of, I sense a disturbance in the Force. It felt like that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, that would have worked by itself, but just having the connection of the teardrop and the drop kind of disturbing his tranquility there was it made it very tangible.
Yeah, I would agree. There were a lot of really cool, like that was really well shot. The final scene where he's running alongside the soldiers and chasing after the Khan, I thought that
Yeah.
was a real something about the way that was shot really worked. And just in general, the way that the camera, moves around in order to hint at some of the things the characters are supposed to be doing that are maybe exceeding human potential. It was pretty effective. Like the way that they have Zhao Long Nu move rapidly in the battle. Like I don't know how they did it, but there's a
Yes.
scene where you see Guo Fu stationary in the background. In the foreground, you kind of see Zhao Long Nu. It's almost like she's sliding on something. Like maybe they have her on a I don't know, some kind of
Slip and
treadmill.
slide.
Yeah, something they're doing. I don't know what the technique is, but it's really effective because you can see how the other characters aren't moving that way, and she's able to just kind of slide. And it's also very stylistic. Um,
Yeah, it was the action in the last episode is very well done without question.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree.
Even if we don't get the grand formation.
I just wish we got more Huang Yaoshi in his just because it's really cool to see him step into that role, and then he assigns each of the formations is led by one of the heroes. So Huang Rong leads one of them, Zhu Batong leads one of them, and he kind of decides which element they're most appropriate to be a part of. So it's all very deeply interconnected, and it's it would never work in a real situation, but it just is a cool visual.
Yeah, I would have been fine with more Huang Yoshi. I've liked him very much in this series.
And I think like one of them, like I think the fire formation literally has like these flamethrower type devices, and like the water I think is Huang Rong maybe with some kind of poisonous gassy. It was very cool. Like
Well, as I'm reading the last chapter, I'll have to jump forward a little bit and skim through that part of the book as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a section that's worth reading, I would say. It kind of ends abruptly though, like we said. You get the Khan dies, and then celebration in the city. Yanguo is paraded through to the exit.
Oh yeah, go on.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, and then we get like the finale. But what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say we do get the nice interaction between Yang Guo and Guo Jin there at the end too, where Yang Guo acknowledges it's like, yeah, wow, I basically, I owe every good thing that's happened in my life to you, even though I kind of resented you for taking me to the to those monks. But it's just a nice moment of closure between the two, where they make total peace between each other at that point.
Yeah, it is interesting because if Yanguo never went to Tuanzhen sect, he would never have met Zhao Long Nu. Like he would never like if Huang Rong had never kicked him off of the island. All these things that he had resentment towards were actually critical steps in him becoming who he was. So it is a really complete journey. You see what Yanguo begins as number one, the son of a great villain, and a really wild kid who could easily go in the same direction of his father, and doesn't. He ends up restrained. I think because of Zhao Long Nu. I think Zhao Long Nu is the thing that really prevents him from. Because remember where he was before he met Zhao Long Nu, and you can just so easily see him going down a villain. Just under the wrong master, he would have. Yeah. He was barely even capable of being taught at that point. He was so, Tuanzhen definitely had its flaws and did things bad to him, but also he was just, refusing to learn. Yeah.
It's and I mean we all, it's nice you also get the scene of Yang Guo kind of, we already talked a bit about the scene with him and Guo Fu where where she asks him to help the husband, and but him just saying is like, yeah, I'm gonna help you. You're my sister. We grew up together. It's like he makes peace with everyone, even in Guao Fu's case. It's debatable where she really earned it as much, but he just lets go of every grudge he has against everyone completely in the final episode.
And I love the complicated look on her face during all of that, because you're never quite sure like what her internal feelings
Yeah,
are.
when she hugs her sister too, when she hugs Zhang, I actually rewound it because there's just this great, when Zhang comes over and hugs her, and she's like I feel good about this, but I'm really confused. It was like the actress just nailed that. It was just so perfect.
And there's a lot of internal dialogue going on with that character in those moments, so it was very effective, I thought, because you really couldn't, without spelling it out. They do a good job, I think, of kind of conveying some of it.
Yeah, I've noticed in the Legend of Condor Heroes series that I'm watching. I'm currently watching the 2017 series of that, and they resort to doing the voiceover internal dialogue, which is fine, but it's like they get away with not doing that in this series very well.
Yeah, because you can also end up with the early '80s Dune.
Yes.
Which,
yeah, exactly. It's a dangerous technique. It's if you can not use it, it's always better to skip the voiceover.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But yeah. So I mean that was I don't know. I think we've covered a lot of the key things going on here. I'm sure. I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts on the show in general?
Let's see. I mean, having watched all of it, I would definitely recommend before watching this taking in some form of the original Legend of Condor Heroes. Either watching the TV series, just watching Brave Archer is enough. Even though it's a really truncated, very cut down version of the story, and you miss all the historical context, it at least sets you up for all the characters. You will be familiar with all the characters, so that would be the minimal version, but taking in the book or a series would be my recommendation if you really want to appreciate this one fully.
Yeah, I can tell you what happened to me was I think this was the first one that I saw, and then but I had watched an episode of Legend of Condor Heroes, and I was trying to get that series, but when I placed my order, I got this series, and so that's how so I ended up with, I was like, well, this is clearly not what I was watching, but I got DVDs, I might as well watch everything, and so that's kind of what sent me on my journey with this. But yeah, I think you're probably better off generally getting familiar with the first story.
I mean, you would enjoy the series fine without it, but there's a lot of points you're just not gonna get.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of character. Like I had when I first watched this, I had a lot of character confusion because some old guy shows up and you don't really know his full significance. But I think that this is the Legend of Condor Heroes trilogy in general. Whatever form you get it in, it's pretty essential viewing, reading, for any kind of wuxia stuff. So if you want like just to have a sense of what the genre really is, you definitely need to at least get Legend of Condor Heroes under your belt, and ideally get Legend, Return, and Heaven Sword, Dragon Saber. There's other stuff that's also important to read and understand, but I think this is like the most these characters are so widely known in the culture. You just really need to become familiar with them in some form, I think.
And I mean it's not like I'm handing out homework going, you have to go through Legend of Condor Heroes before you get to Return. You just have to bear through it because it's as good a story on its own right. So I mean, the only respects in which I can say Return of Condor Heroes are better is just because it's building on the cool stuff in the first one. But it's not a terrible thing to have to go through Legend first.
No, in fact, I think that the cool thing about this trilogy is you can have a really good debate on which is the best in all of them, and it's always really hard to sort of settle that question. You know, a lot of people like Heaven's Sword Dragon Saber. A lot of people like this one. A lot of people like Legends. For me, it's almost, you know, at this point, it's almost just what mood am I in. But
well, I like that they are very different. I mean, the love story, they both center on love stories to an extent. The two I'm familiar with, but they're very different characters and very different love stories. So it doesn't. But they're both, you know, you might think, oh, they both center on a love story. A lot of authors would kind of fall into a pattern, but there's a very different feel to them.
Yeah, well, I know one of his aims as a writer, I've probably said this before, is he always wanted to make characters that were unique, that hadn't been done before. Every time, and he acknowledged he probably didn't always do that, but that was always his goal. Was I want to make a character that hasn't been made before, you know, that nobody's ever seen. And you can feel that with the way, like, you know, like a character like Zhu Batong, you know, he is sort of a unique guy. And Zhao Longnu is there's always and it's not done in the way that you tend to see characterization done now. It's done in Louis Cha's way, and I like that. I like that it's not, you know, he's not tied to a lot of what, I don't know. I find a lot of very character focused stuff that's done now, I almost get bored with because it gets too tedious, sort of probing the layers of the characters.
There's a lot of pop psychology elements to a lot of writers now, where it's based more on theory of character than people, and it's boring.
and this is just sort of based more. It's more of a common sense approach to making characters. Yeah. It's not drawn from like there's like some psychological reason why this. It's based on, well, this is, you know, what you would think might be the case, and I kind of just find that better. 'Cause it's not, you know. If he had done it the other way, if he had said, I'm going to use the latest, you know, psych theories or whatever to explain my characters, I think it wouldn't have worked as well, because then it would have been forever tied to like 1959. You know, you would have had this like
I'll agree. I think the characters are really the strength of this series, because there's, you know, a Louis Cha's strength, because it's like there are points where the plot is kind of strained or overly convenient. I mean, the whole explanation of what happened to Zhao Longnu, like you say, there's lots of problems there. There's multiple problems there, but you're just happy enough that Zhao Longnu and Yan Gao are back together, and they made such a big sacrifice and had such emotional weight. The characters are good enough to carry you through any plotting flaws you can come up with, so it works. Just that, I mean, that's because of the characters.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, and again, it's, you know, the characters. It's really hard to understand what we mean when we say this unless you see. If you haven't seen Return of Condor Heroes, if you haven't read it, there's just so much going on with all these characters, and and so much of it is fun. That's the part that I really like about it. It doesn't take itself so seriously that it forgets to have fun with the characters. And I think that's the important bit. It's this balance of fun, but also enough emotional weight, like you said, that you care about them. And
well, that's, you know, I mean, I've said this before, but my introduction to the wuxia genre was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, back when that came out in the theater, and I like the movie. It's good, but it's serious in a way that gave me a misleading idea about what the rest of the genre was like, and because I didn't end up digging deeper into it, I've had this feeling that wuxia was a very serious, dramatic genre, and I mean, it does have drama to it, but it's very heavily balanced with just pure fun.
And it's capable of doing both. You can have a fully serious one, but you also can have fun. You can also go, you know, Gulong sort of goes, he's like Louis Chan, that he has these interesting characters, but it's a little bit darker and maybe a little bit more serious, but there's still like a fun element. There's still like an eccentric thing going on that makes it enjoyable. And
that's what, you know, and I mean, going back to the character thing too, I mean, that's why, as a bare minimum, I feel you can get away with watching Brave Archer before watching this, because you're missing 90% of the plot if you watch that, but you will know all the important characters you need to know, because that movie does get the characters across.
In fact, I would definitely second that. I would say if you want to watch Return of Condor Heroes and you don't want to, you don't want to watch like all of Legend, watch the Brave Archer series, at least 1 through 3, and you'll be prepared.
Yeah, 1 through 3. Yeah, I forgot to add that qualification.
You know, you'll be and you'll be fully prepared. And Brave Archer is it's a Chang-Chi film. It's got
Yes.
we debated this, but I think it's got one of the best introductions ever to a movie, where they just have
Yes.
this endless parade of characters. And
Yeah. Just if you're at home, just Google Brave Archer credits, and you can just. I've noticed there's a YouTube video of it, and that's just. I just find that an enjoying little thing by itself.
And also, you get the unbelievable, I think in Brave Archer 3, but I could be wrong, maybe it's 2. You get the unbelievable Yidang Finger.
Yes.
Which was very divisive on the podcast, but I think it's one of it's the most the best way to describe it is it's the most groovy display of martial prowess ever put on film. I think that's
And the music is perfect as well. But that's another thing. There is a YouTube video of that, and I believe the YouTube video is called Li Tong is the Southern Emperor is the name of the video.
Okay.
So put that into YouTube, and you'll know exactly what we're talking about.
But Brave Archer is available on Prime, I think, so people can go to Prime if they have that, and they can watch it.
Oh yeah, watch the whole movie definitely.
But yeah, so Return to now. One thing I do want to talk about before we end is appropriation of music in these series, because you see that's something that's, you know, we watch a lot of Shaw Brothers on the podcast, and we see that all the time. They'll be playing some Ennio Morricone music or some other type of music, and I don't think it was completely ripped. I think there was some kind of musical service that they purchased that allowed them to have access to these clips, but I'm not 100% sure. You know, I don't really know, but the impression you get is they're just kind of ripping music from different movies.
Off my head, the last recent ones we've had, like the Dark Knight music. We've had Brazil. The Brazil soundtrack comes up a lot. There's
Transformers soundtrack gets thrown
Transformers.
in here.
The Virgin Suicide soundtrack by Air was used a lot in the later episodes too.
And we got the 92 Dracula soundtrack during the more ominous, which really works well in Passionless Valley, because there's kind of a Dracula vibe going on there. And but I guess what I really number one, I thought this series does that splendidly. It just kind of takes it into the modern day, like they like, whereas, you know, the Shaw Brothers was using contemporary pieces of music, you know, for a lot of their stuff. This is using contemporary music, like you hear the Transformers soundtrack, you know exactly what they're calling to when they do it, but it has a totally different feel in that movie. I really wish that this was a more common practice, because I think it adds to the movie. I think there's something to be said for taking a familiar piece of music that people they know what it's supposed to do, like, you know what you're supposed to feel when this music happens.
I'd say that the only one that really kept jarring with me was having music from Brazil in there, because Brazil is such a disturbing, weird, dystopian movie. Every time it would come in, I'd kind of get this angst would kind of hit me. I'm like, which was never appropriate to the scene.
there's always that possibility. There's always, you know, associations people can have with the music, but sometimes it's sort of like, you know, it's sort of like and I do want to make a point. Star Wars kind of does that. One of the reasons why Star Wars works is because he's really he's drawing on specific pieces of music. He's making something new, so it's not like he's ripping it off. But they could have just as easily just taken that music and put it in, and you would have had a very similar effect, I think. And I think I don't know. I feel like there's something to be said for doing that. There's even
I agree. Yeah, I mean it's a weird age we live in as human beings, where music is kind of owned and restricted, and you can't freely just pop music into any creation you want. Because for most of human history, there isn't any such thing as copyright, and so there's a lot more looseness with that kind of thing. And I mean, I'm not saying copyright's bad by any means, but it has a weird effect in that way.
I feel like there should be a much more limited copyright that only applies to the person who made the music. And do you know what I mean? I mean, not to go on a tangent, but like I think we've gone way too far with the way music copyright is handled. And I think that there's no room for real folk music, because you can't if everything's copyrighted, you can't do what folk music does, which is somebody makes a song and then you take that song and you add your thing to it, and then it just keeps going down the line. And you sort of see that naturally emerging on YouTube, but now it's coming to an end because people are starting to bring a halt to illegal uses of music.
Well, the fact that Lord of the Rings, I mean, how long has Tolkien been dead, and that is still privately owned by organizations and corporations, and it's like that should belong to the public at this point. There's just no question.
So our extreme views on copyright aside,
that's right.
Very, very good version of Return of Condor Heroes. I think that it's I don't know. I have nostalgic attachment to this version, so I think that I'm biased, and I don't know that I can examine it next to other ones and say that it's objectively better. But I just really like this version. Yeah,
I'm not entering with a bias that I know of, and I found it very enjoyable. It's I think it's great. I wish there was a version of Legend of Condor Heroes that tied more closely to the exact same tone and everything as this one, but because it would be nice to have the whole story kind of with more continuity. But it's very well done.
Which version are you watching? You're watching the 2017 version, or are you watching?
Yeah, I did. That's the one I'm watching at the moment. Which
there's, for people who don't know, there's like a billion versions of each of these series.
I've watched parts of others. Is it the 2004, 2006, whatever, the one around there? I've watched some of that.
Yeah, well, the people that made this one, I think, made a version of Legend of Condor Heroes a few years before.
It didn't feel the same to me. I didn't get into that one. It didn't work for me, unfortunately.
And there's also the 90s version. The 90s versions of Legend and Return get a lot of praise. I just have had trouble finding them in English, so that's been the big hurdle. But from what people who understand the language have told me, those are considered those are really highly revered versions. There's also the early 80s versions, which you can get in English, and those are good, but you do see some of the production value. You can tell that money was sometimes an issue, or that it was just sort of an early 80s production. Just like if you go back and you watch an American show from the early 80s, you get that.
I've watched some of the early 80s version without subtitles, just to kind of get a look at it. And it is very low budget. I mean, it's kind of going back and watching, 70s Doctor Who or something, or watching Claudius. It's very limited in it, but I like the performances in it. I can see why it's got a lot of appeal.
And also, I should mention, because if people want to if people want to get this, I think they can still get it on DVD. I have, I think it's a Tai Seng version, but I'm not 100% sure. Let me see if I can find out who made it. I apologize if people hear me typing, but I do want to kind of get this. All right, so it looks like you can still get it for $80, but that's not the version that I have. What I would do, though, is I would go to Yes Asia, and they probably have a version of it there, and the version I have is now going for $96. So you're probably better off going to Yes Asia, but these are still available, and I think the more people actually buy them, the more we'll actually see, them being done in English, and the books being translated. So I would definitely encourage people, always check out Yes Asia first, would be my recommendation, then check Amazon or eBay, and you can sometimes find these on DVD. Sometimes they're if they're impossible to get, or you have to pay like $500 because it's been out of circulation for so long. But it's definitely worth getting them on DVD. And yeah, so I think, is that everything? Are we
I think we're done. We've run out of this. It's kind of sad. It's another series over with.
But I will say we have Painted Skin coming this Friday to talk about, and so I'm looking forward to that. And I also know that there's another episode of Wuxia Workshop around the corner, and I think I forget what we're going to discuss, but I know I think one of the movies we're going to talk about will actually be the original Flying Guillotine. So that should be an interesting discussion. And if anybody's interested, there's a if anybody follows Jiang Hu Hustle, they have a discussion of Master of the Flying Guillotine, which is a Jimmy Wang Yu sort of version of one of the Flying Guillotine movies, and it's one of the better ones out there. So it's worth listening to them if you have any interest in following our Flying Guillotine discussion, because we're going to talk about the original, and I think it, if people haven't seen the movies, they'd benefit from understanding what Master of the Flying Guillotine is about. So all right, so we will let you go, and we will talk to you later.